Okay, so the next session is going to be so what they are talking about these days, analyzing and visualizing topics with graph, like Julia. So the sponsor for this session is going to be Zero Turnaround with the XRebel tool. Oleg and Simon will make a much better job talking about XRebel than me, but XRebel is a tool to do profiling on your app on multiple environments, development, test, and production. It allows you to find and fix performance issues when you have application code that runs really slow, excessive I/O, especially on the database, HTTP requests, and so on and so forth. So please check it out, see if it can do something for you. So if you're just joining us, we have a Slack channel that you're able to join. If you go to vJUG24, you have a link over there. Join us over there and be happy, and feel free to send any questions to Julia that we'll be relaying back to her during the session or in the end with QA. Feel free to tweet about us on vJUG24 hashtag. We'll be happy to retweet you as well. And please make sure that you increase your video quality to HD to make sure that you don't miss any detail on these awesome sessions that we're having. So without further delay, I'll hand over to Julia. So Julia, I have 45 minutes for your session. I hope that's enough. And then we'll hopefully have 5 minutes left in the end for QA. So whenever you're ready, feel free to start.
Thanks for the introduction. So I'm gonna introduce myself real quick. So I'm Julia. I work for Oracle Labs. I used to work for Oracle Labs at HQ in California. Now I'm in Munich. Based in Munich, but right now I'm in Boston, and we're working on this very cool project called Oracle Labs Data Studio, and the graph database, and these are the two topics that I'm going to talk about today. So first, I also want to say that if you have any questions, feel free to ask them right away. So I'm happy to answer them right away. And so I'm going to switch over to my slides. So the topic is, what are they talking about these days? Analyzing topics with graphs. And we wanted to have a nice use case to show how graph database and various technologies that we have at Oracle fit together in a nice way. And before I start, I have to say that everything I'm saying here, of course, you should not make purchasing decisions based on what I'm saying. That's Oracle. So the topic of this talk is finding out interesting topics of what people are discussing. So so I'm first gonna real quick talk a bit about what we wanna achieve with this talk, and then how this connects to graphs and the graph database that we're using and developing at Oracle Labs, and then I'm gonna make a demo and showing you how this works live. So it's just gonna be a few slides. So the main questions that we have here is, what are the topics people are discussing and how do they evolve? And what are the experts in a given topic? And for that, we wanted to have a nice use case. And you all know the Stack Overflow forum. And there are all these forums, and we decided we wanted to analyze movies and TVs, and we just wanted to find out connections between movies and what people are talking about movies and TVs. So that's gonna be the use case that we're using through the whole session. So when we're talking about movies and TVs, so it's like Stack Overflow. You have posts and you have answers. And you have accepted answers, as you know that from Stack Overflow. And that's the data that we're going to analyze. And first, I'm going to talk about the data set and the objectives. Then we want to find out the topics. So I'm going to quickly describe the algorithm and how to do topic modeling. Then how does this look like as a graph? And then I will talk about the tools that we are developing, the graph database, the graph analytics, and the notebook that we are developing, and then I'm going to show you, give you a live demo. So first, the data set is just a dump that we used from the Stack Exchange network. It contains, as I said, all the posts, the comments, the user profiles, and the tags. And we're going to look at movies and TVs from the beginning 2011 till March 2017. So all questions about movies from that in that time. And what we want to do is we want to do first topic modeling. So we want to identify broader discussion topics from tags and posts. So we don't want to have just, okay, this is the movie Harry Potter, but we want to have what is the topic, like doing that with a machine learning approach called topic modeling. And then we want to analyze how topics change over time. So if there is an evolution, and also if they change in their importance. And finally, we want to find the experts in a given topic. So those are these two main objectives that we have with this session. So just a very brief introduction into topic modeling. Topic modeling is just a statistical model for discovering the abstract topics. That could be anything, so just very abstract. When you have a collection of documents, and then you have a model, and then a document is associated with either one topic or could be associated with multiple topics. So for example, here, the first document is related to just one topic, which could be associated with the tags of the document cat and mouse. And the other documents has two different topics. So that's what we want to do. We have all these movies, we have all these tags and posts, and we'll find the broader topics. And we're going to do that with the technology that we are developing. So, but more...
I'm sorry, Sir Julia, are you sharing any slides? Because we're not able to see any slides.
That's pretty... Thanks for that. I clicked...
sorry about that. I was not sure if you were already doing some slides or not. Okay, there we go.
Can you see it now?
I can see myself. I'm not able to see the slides
So
yet.
then I'm gonna go back real quick just to show you again. So this is the whole... So you can see my slides now?
Not yet. We see like a black screen. Yeah, I'm able to see myself.
Maybe I should.
Hangout. Okay. Try screen sharing again.
What about now?
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Yeah, it's okay. We see the slides.
So I'm gonna just quickly go through them again. So first, the two questions: what are the topics and what are the experts? Then this was just what I said. First, I talk about the data sets, then topic modeling, the graph tools, and the demo. And this is what I talked about. So the two objectives, and so the data set, we got it from stackexchange, the two objectives, the topic modeling and the user analysis. And this is the picture that I was just describing. So topic modeling, we have the collection of documents, then we have a model, and we want to find out the topics for our documents, and one document can have just one topic or more topics. And I'm going to show you the algorithm on how we implement this topic modeling for our movie example. And this is where was right now. So this is just looking into the data set that we are going to analyze. So we have posts, tags, and users. And as you know it from Stack Overflow, we have every post has an accepted answer, and there's just XML that you can download. And we have tags and users. So we have this data set, and what we wanted to have is like a graph that we can use for this demo. And we pre-process this data from XML files and put it into our graph database. I will talk about this a bit later. Our graph database is called PGX. It stands for Parallel Graph Analytics. And the graph that we're using looks as follows. So we have users write posts, and posts have tags, and the user can also comment on a post. But for this, for our example, we are not looking at comments. And every post is either an answer to a post or is an accepted answer of a post. So this is the data structure that we're using, and then we're going to analyze in our notebook in a bit. So then the topic analysis is done with map equation algorithm, and we're using relax map. That's just a parallel version of this algorithm, and it's basically just finding communities, and these communities can be interpreted as topics. What we also do, we just say, okay, each community just is one topic, so there's no mixture, and each post and tags, they're assigned to one and just only one topic. That's just something to make it nicer, an assumption that we make here. Now I want to talk very briefly about the technologies that we're using. The first graph database that I mentioned before is called Oracle PGX. It's a graph analysis package, and it does both things. So it's a graph database, and also it does graph analytics. Like you can do a lot of built-in graph algorithms like PageRank, community detection, stuff like that. And then you have it's fast and easy to do graph analysis on a data set, and also to convert your relational data into graph data. It's already integrated into products, big data and spatial graph, and spatial and graph. And so this is the first technology that I want to mention, PGX, the graph database. But if you have a database, you also need a query language. So in relational databases, you have SQL. So for PGX, we have this property query language, property graph query language, where you query the graph. So there are two major approaches how to query, how to do graph analysis. So the first is computational graph analytics. So you just iterate through the graph, or you do pattern matching. Like you find sub-patterns in the graph. And PGX supports both approaches. We have green-marl for the first approach, and PGQL, which is the property graph query language that I mentioned before, which is there to, which we're gonna use in a second. And this, yeah, so the environment that we're gonna use now is the Oracle Labs Data Studio, which is a notebook approach. If you're familiar with Jupyter or Zeppelin, this is our approach for a notebook. And in addition to all the interpreters that Zeppelin and Jupyter are providing, like Python, Shell, then JDBC, we also support our technologies like PGX and PGQL. So this is it from the slides. So as I said, we have a notebook environment that supports PGX and PGQL. Is there a question?
Yeah, we have one question. So is this then related to the Oracle spatial and graph features of the Oracle DB, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This was from Alex Morelos.
So the Data Studio that I'm going to show now is not released yet. It's just a front end, but as I said, PGX is already in the product. And if you want to know more about PGX, PGQL, so there's a website, there are links there. I can also send them somewhere after that. So, but that's it. So this was a short introduction. We're now going to look at this graph again. So we have user write posts, and posts have tags. And posts can be accepted answer and answer off. So this is the graph that we're going to use. And now I'm going to switch over to our notebook. So this is the Oracle Labs Data Studio that I talked about. So this is a normal notebook environment, so we can create a new notebook and can add paragraphs with certain interpreters. So we can, for example, use Python, and we just type Python, and it's like Jupyter. You can do anything that you're used to doing with Zeppelin or Jupyter. So we have Python, we have Shell, we have Oracle DB, JDBC, like you can connect your Postgres or MySQL database. And in addition to that, we also support pGQL and pgx. So that was just showing you how this works, and this is the notebook that I prepared for this session. So what we want to do, we want to analyze the topics of the Stack Exchange networks for movies. And I'm going to just go through the paragraphs and describe what I did. And one major improvement to other notebook approaches, apart from pgx and pgql, is also a lot of visualizations. So we have like all these different kinds of charts, but also graph visualization. So we're going to look into that as well. So first, what we want to do, we have this graph that I showed you before, and the first paragraph here says, okay, we want to use pgx, the graph database, and what we're doing here is basically just defining helper functions that we're going to use afterwards. So this is not really interesting, but the first part here is just loading and exploring the graph. So the first thing we want to do is we want to load the graph. So what we did before, we converted the XML files into a graph, into a file format that pgx can use. And we create a paragraph here, and we want to use pgx to load the graph. So we just say the graph user posts and tags. We say session read graph with properties from movies, and movies is the graph that we loaded into pgx beforehand. And then we just do a bit of filtering, like we just want to have filter, like we exclude some vertices just to clean up the data a bit. But what we have in the end, we have the graph loaded into pgx, and it tells us here it has 74,000 nodes and more edges. So the first step now, we have pgx, we have the graph in our graph database. And now I talked about our query language, pGQL, and what we wanted to do, we wanted to have this as close to SQL as possible. So the syntax should look kind of familiar if you're familiar with SQL. So what we want to do first is we want to see what kinds of nodes are in the graph. So we want to select all the labels, and from the graph that have, so the difference to SQL, we have this match statement that just have a node. So we have N and M, which are the nodes, and E, which is the edge, and we just define what is what, and we just say, okay, what are the labels in the graph? And the results, so the nice thing about the notebook is that we can show this in various result visualizations. What is visualization, for example, is showing us we have a lot of nodes which are posts and questions. Then we have some nodes that are posts and answers. We have a lot of nodes that are users. We have some posts which are posts, answers, and accepted answers, and some that are just posts. So what we're going to do now, we're just exploring the graph in different ways. So this is just showing another kind of visualization. And a next question could be, we want to list all the tags and how many posts are associated with a tag. So for example, we have the tag character or analysis. So what we want to do, we want to select the tag name and count from our graph where there is an edge from post to a tag, and then just group that by tag name. And a nice way to visualize that is a tag cloud, and it shows us that a lot of posts have the tag character. So if you think about movies, a lot of questions are about, okay, what character, about characters in general. And again, we have like a lot of different visualizations that we can look at. And we know now that character analysis identified this TV show are tags that are there very often. So another question could be, we want to know the users that have written like the most posts. So with our vJUG24 language, we select all the names. Display name here is just a username. And from our graph, where there is an edge from user to post. And then we group that by the user. So we want to see, okay, who's the user with the most answers, but not necessarily accepted answers. So we have Walt here. Walt seems to be an expert, and or at least writing a lot of answers. And then we see how many answers people write. And another thing is reputation. So it doesn't mean that, so you get reputation, like you know from Stack Overflow when you have an accepted answer and stuff like that. So it doesn't mean, so Walt could write a lot of answers, but if they're all not accepted, his reputation would not be very high. So we want to now list all the users ordered by reputation. So we just select with the display name from our graph, from the nodes with the reputation from our graph, and we say we want to have that from user and just order that by reputation. And there we see that Walt is not only the one with the most answers, but also the one with the highest reputation. So he seems to be an expert in a lot of fields. Then the same thing, but so first, so not reputation, but accepted answers. So we use vJUG again to select from the display name where there is, and this is a bit more interesting. We have an edge, and the edge is write post from our user and to accepted answer. And then just order that by the number of occurrences, and Walt is again the expert in this field. So this is part one. We're just exploring our graph with vJQL. Are there any questions so far to vJQL? Because I can go more into detail about the syntax or about the vJQL or PGX in general. Otherwise, the second part is more about the topic modeling and...
Yeah, we don't have any more questions at the moment, so please proceed.
Thank you. Then there are two more questions that we want to ask. And so...
Actually, I'm sorry, we just got one. Sorry for interrupting. So again, from Alex Morales, his question is, I'm assuming the graph is fully loaded in memory. So could we update the graph using the SQL-like language? Can we make incremental changes to the graph?
Yes, we can do, so it's loaded in memory and we can do incremental, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So to show this very nice visualization of a tree map, this is also again vJQL. So we want to have all the display names. So we want to have the people who are experts for a certain tag. So we match the users that write a post that have an answer of a question that have a certain tag. So for example, we have the tag character, and we know we see the users that are experts in a certain character. So for example, for character, it would be CD, or for horror, Walt is the expert again. And all these visualizations have a lot of customization. So you can change stuff like the height. You can say what to group. You can change the colors. You can group by different things. and aggregate by various things. So that's the main difference to all the other notebook approaches. In addition to just normal visualization, we have a lot of customization. So like sorting, but also then title, subtitle. And this is just for this kind of graph. So if we change to another graph, we have various settings like how orientation, how's the stacking. We can even do polar coordinates. We can change the sorting. And we can also do the text. And then depending on the chart type, there are various different kinds of customization of the chart. So it's a very easy and nice way to explore data. And we always see, so there is always the table view that you use to, and we always see also the raw data that we have. So the visualizations and the graph is the new thing. So where is my graph here? So what, yeah, is there a question?
Yeah, we have a question here from Shamir Parker. He's asking that, are we only able to see the graph on Oracle Labs Data Studio, or can we show them maybe in an HTML page?
The graph meaning the XM, like the...
Yeah, for instance, basically, are we able to export or maybe use like the graph that you're showing right now, or the ones that you've shown before? Are you able to, for instance, like port it as an HTML page, maybe like as a widget or something like that? Or do you always have to go to Oracle Labs Data Studio to...
With graph, I guess with graph is, you mean charts or?
Yeah, the chart.
Okay,
yeah.
yes. So because, yeah. So yes, this is, you can just convert as export. So you have you can just share the notebook. You can also just download the JSON files, and you can use that you can just open it also in Zeppelin. So it's compatible with Zeppelin. And you can also open it as an iframe, and then you just have an iframe with the chart.
Okay.
So that's the ways to share and use it.
Yeah, and also asking here if there are some kind of like web service or API that you're able to call to grab data, or?
Not yet, but that's planned.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So that's not, it's the interesting part, because we have this extensive graph visualization. So this is a part of the graph that we saw, that we loaded. It's just a small subset, and we see the blue nodes are the tags, and the green nodes are the posts. So for example, we see here, or maybe I'd find something interesting question. So we see the node ID, and we see the question here. So for example, this is a question about, I don't know which movie that is, in The Craft. So in the movie The Craft, and you see all the data like that is in that post. So the favorite count, how many comments, and all of that. So are the nodes. And we have this graph visualization. So this is based on D3, and you can basically load any graph and visualize it as a graph, and you can do a lot of customization. So we have, again, the general settings, but we have a lot of, like, you can change the edge, the marker types. So you can have an arrow, or you can have no arrow. You can change the layout of the graph. If you want to have the tree, you can even change the theme, and you can say if you want to have curve or straight edges. And then we have all these force attributes. If you're familiar with force layouting, how D3 layouts the graph, you can change the link distance and the force strength just to influence the layout. And this is something that, if you know Neo4j, the graph desktop, or other graph visualization approaches, this is not possible with them. So this is a real nice way to lay out the graph, to just customize the graph. And then you can also add labels to nodes, or say where you want to have them, and also labels to edges. You can then also add highlights. So, for example, you want to not have nodes as like just nodes, you want to have icons, and you can just add icons. You can highlight, for example, vertices. You can change the size and the color. And you can then have a stack of highlights, and then you just remove the highlights. So you can also reset it. So we have this extensive graph visualization approach. We have a lot of settings where you can change things. And just want to quickly, because I think I didn't mention it, so we again have our paragraph of vJQL, and we select all the posts that the tags, the names, and age from our graph, where just there is a post that has a tag. And our notebook sees, okay, this is a graph, so I can also visualize it as a graph. But again, I can also visualize it as all the other charts that we saw before. So this is just an extension to all the charts that Oracle Jet provides. So our application is based on Oracle Jet, which is a JavaScript framework, and we extended the visualizations with the graph visualization. Yeah, so this was part one. This was about PGX, vJQL, graph visualization, and now we want to actually answer the question that we asked at the beginning, which was, what are the topics people talk about? And for that, we find the communities in the data that we have. And for that, we use PGX to implement the algorithm that I briefly described before. And then we want to find the most important communities. And I'm not going to describe everything here. If you have questions, you can ask. But important here is that we have this built-in graph algorithms, and one of them is PageRank. So you just take, so PageRank, if you don't know, it is a way to find like the most important nodes in a graph with some, however you define it. And we have this built-in algorithms. You can say we can just say PGX, run PageRank on this graph, and this gives you the most important. This gives, what it does is it adds to each node, it adds a PageRank value, which is a value between 0 and 1, how important this node is in the graph. And we want to find the communities. So we implemented this topic modeling approach in PGX. And what this paragraph does is it finds the communities. So the result of this paragraph is it found almost 3,000 communities, which we call topics. And these are so what we then want to have is just the 5 top communities. And then what we could do is, okay, what are these communities? And so we can just say vJQL, find the top 5 communities. So we want to have the communities from our graph that match a certain tag. And we group that by community ID. And then we see, okay, those are the 5 which have a certain ID now, which you can look up. You see those are the most important communities in our graph. So that answers the questions that we wanted to ask at the beginning. That was more or less what I really wanted to show. So what I can do now, I can do several things. I can do create a new notebook and go a bit more into detail about PGX, about vJQL, about the graph visualization, which is very unique, or I can just answer general questions.
Okay, Julia, thank you so much. So let me see if you have any more questions here coming from our live hangout. We have some people typing. Let's see if they have anything for you. So please, guys, if you have anything for Julia, please let me know on our Slack channel, and I'll be happy to relay back to Julia. Okay, so we have a question here from Alex Morelos. This sounds very cool. If I understand correctly, the graph should span many nodes in a cluster. What is the largest graph you have loaded?
The largest graph we have loaded, that is, I would say around, so very large. There is no limit, if I can say it like this. So I can send you, if you're really interested, I can send you the publications where we have the comparison. So there is no, I would say, no reasonable limit for the size of the graph that PGX can load in memory.
Okay. I'm not sure if you have any more questions at the moment. At least our audience seems quiet right now. Do you have any Twitter account, or can we reach you somehow?
So you can always send me an email. I don't have a Twitter account.
Okay, it's just so if some of our audience wants to stay in touch with you, or wants to ask something offline, then they know how to reach you.
Let me show you.
Yeah, please share your contacts with us on your
So I guess so my email is here. Whoa.
Okay.
So if you want to have any links, any publications, the slides, or the links to PGX, PGCal, or then also if you want to get an email if when Oracle Labs Data Studio is going to be released, please just send me an email, and I'm going to send you an email if it's released and with all the other things that you want to have.
Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions left. We have some people typing. Oh, there is again from Alex Morelos. He claims he's a Spark developer. He's asking if that also plays nice with Spark.
Yes, so we have Spark interpreter, so you can use Spark.
Awesome. I think
so we have everything like it's based on Zeppelin, so everything that Zeppelin supports, we support, plus the technologies that I just talked about.
Okay. So let's see if I have any more questions left. I don't believe we have. So unless there is something else that you want to share with us, I'll let you go. And I will really like to thank you for giving this awesome presentation to the vJUG24.
No, that's it from my side. Thank you so much for having me, and send me an email. Everybody can send me an email if they have any more questions. Thank you.
Awesome, definitely. Yeah, so please reach Julia at the email that she shared there on the screen. And we were happy to have you here. So hopefully you can return some way in the future, either on the vJUG24 or the vJUG regular session. So thank you so much for joining. And we are done with one more session. So we still have 2 left. So we're almost done with our vJUG24. So we now have like a small break here until the next session is going to be 6 a.m. for me, actually. I'm not sure what everyone else's time zone is, but really happy to have all of you guys here seeing the live sessions. Anyway, take this time until the next session to enjoy a break, eat something, and then come back later, and where we're gonna have my good friend Andres Almire talking about Gradle. So stay tuned for that. See you in a few minutes.